So like I said, I'm very, very excited. So the first time I saw this book, I was actually on the Westland website and I was on Amazon and I saw the spiritual CEO and it immediately got me thinking. And I said, you know what? This is such a interesting topic and it's so interesting for the times that we live in, because I don't know about you, but as a person, I think with COVID times, we're all grappling with what is the role and what is our role as a working person, what is our role as a business leader, how should we actually think about life even. And so I was very, very excited when Prakash ji accepted our invitation to be a speaker on Sipping Thoughts and to talk about something I think that a lot of us are actually talking about. How do we create an impactful life? A little bit about Prakash ji. He's the secretary to Daiji, who's a global guide for the Heartfulness Institute. He's a best-selling author in India. He's a C-suite coach. He's a master storyteller. He's a nation builder. He's got so many, I would say, accolades to his name. But I think what we're talking about today is that the world is going through a tremendous transformation, perhaps even a metamorphosis. There is no longer acceptable to stand on the sidelines, balancing balance sheets and checkbooks. The Spiritual CEO, which is brought to you by Westland, which is an Amazon company, it opens our eyes to the collective need and the urgent need that all of us need to change. So, what Prakashji does very well, he distills the ancient wisdom from the Gita and learnings from the Vedas and other spiritual texts. And he explains how centering ourselves brings a path to greater success in both our personal and our business life. He's published over 10 books in several languages. He has authored 1,000 plus articles on self development, spirituality, and various topics. He's an avid reader and has been practicing heartfulness meditation since 1992, and he's a certified heartfulness trainer. With that, I can go on, but welcome, Prakashji, to Sipping Thoughts. Very nice to have you here.
Share a secret.
Please share a secret. We all want to know the secret.
My wife is on the show.
Oh, should I mute her or should I unmute her? Or should I put her back in the waiting room?
And I always say that, I am the man of the house and I have the permission of my wife to say so.
But fantastic, Prakashji. I want to ask you a question. And just to get us started, what is the spiritual CEO and who is the spiritual CEO?
Something I'm still finding my way through. I would rather be keen on asking the people who are already joined so early a hearty congratulations to them for taking time out. Can they just share a couple of lines what they think could be a spiritual CEO on the chat box? And then maybe, I'm sure that many of them know the subject equally well in their own way. They take to the chat box, maybe I can check out what they have to say, and from there we can pick it up.
So we would love for your voice to be just a little bit louder.
Okay, the first one was deliberately low.
Because you were telling us the secret.
Yes,
All right, Sunita says a CEO who has balanced and a well-regulated mind. Vinita
wonderful.
says one who has control over his or her life. Divya, who realized or found his or her life purpose.
Okay.
One who can control emotions, says Amelia. Nice. Naveen says successful in all spaces of life.
Good. So before we actually look at who is a spiritual CEO, maybe a relevant question for us to ask, where all do the spiritual CEOs exist? Because some of the participants may be wondering, what has a woman participant, maybe a homemaker, have got to do with a topic like a spiritual CEO? I still remember a feedback I received a few weeks back, which I think I shared with you also. One of the reader who is a homemaker who read it wrote to me saying that, Prakash, why do you wrote it? Why did you have to choose the topic spiritual CEO? It's actually meant for everyone in the world, because all of us have that responsibility that you have mentioned in the book. If you look at it, I'm talking about people being responsible and moving themselves to a higher purpose, looking beyond just a material existence. So anyone who is doing that work, they're everywhere. And everyone who is doing this is a spiritual CEO in the making, in my view.
And as we women say, we are the CEO of the homes, So no matter how you slice it and dice it. But
Chief
one more
enablement officers. Without them enabling, where will I be?
the second question I want to ask you, because we are going through a lot of tough times and you do coach a lot of people, what are some of the biggest issues that you are seeing right now in these times?
See, in these times, as well as in the times preceding the pandemic, the biggest challenge I've seen, whether it's a male CEO or a female CEO, has always been what I call as crisis of confidence. I was recently reading an article on forwarded in WhatsApp, a very, very poignant one, where someone is counseling someone who has attempted suicide. He is asking what all ways in which you can commit suicide. And then this person lists about 8 or 10. He says, that's all you have, only 8 or 10 ways of committing suicide and giving up your life. There are thousands and thousands of ways in which you can actually live better. Why don't you look at it? And then the story goes like that. I've always seen that everyone has what it takes to be really super successful in life. What stops them is the lack of belief. And that's where truly the coaching that I do or many of the people do actually gets in. Helping them to get the belief in themselves that they are cut out for something much bigger in life. Like the story of Hanuman, where Jambavan had to tell him that you are great, jump. And then the jump happened.
Fantastic. I mean, that is a good way. I do believe that this confidence definitely is holding us back. But with that, I know everybody is excited to get into this session on how we can live more impactful lives. I turn it over to you.
Okay, let me start with a very, very short anecdotal story, which maybe dates back to yesterday. If you had maybe seen me in the morning of yesterday, maybe you would have been reminded of the character called Goldilocks, long of plaited hair and things like that. And when my wife saw this, she told me that you are not going to land up in front of a camera like this. She did something which she hasn't ever done to me. Of course, she has done it to my daughter many times. She did something in several years of marriage. For the first time, she took scissors and gave me a haircut. What you see right now is a face which looks much more lookable. Thanks. And that reminded me of the pride that women take in being part of everything and taking ownership. I always tell people whenever I do sessions with women, not to make them feel good, not to make them sort of butter them or whatever. Men actually are, if you really look at it, many of them, at least many of them, not all of them, many of them are unidimensional. Their requirements are very restricted: money, power, a few gadgets, and that's it. But if you look at women, they truly are multidimensional. And when it comes to multidimensional, many times when I speak to women, the self-esteem with which they look at themselves, which to a great extent has been shaped by the society itself. Unfortunately, at least in this part of the world, I mean, I don't know how the Western world looks at it. Here, at least, their self-esteem has been shaped by the people who are around who just treat predominantly, I'm sorry to say, but predominantly they're treated as people who do the household chores and just hold up. But imagine for a moment a world for 30 years without women. What would happen? The consequences are there for everyone to know. It is said that if you want to completely stop the population growth or even intellectual growth, take women away from the planet for 30 years. And when you come back, you'll have nothing in the world. That is the impact that actually women have. And as at least a man, that's one thing I have taken upon myself whenever I meet women, those at least who know me, who are part of even this session, who have taken the time out to log in, those who know me know that I walk the extra mile to give them a lot of confidence, because the kind of stress that they go through because of one single factor of not being physically strong as compared to men. Many things that they have to go through is something really. When I wrote the spiritual CEO, it was not, even in the introduction of the book, I have made it very clear it is gender neutral. But for the sake of discussion, I kept it he or she wherever it goes. If you really look at it, they are the ones who are going to create an impact. And that's why I've made the topic, of course, based on discussion with you, create an impactful life. But before I jump deeper into that, I would like to ask the participants to take to the chat box what would impactful life mean to you? Would you mind just sharing a few thoughts in the box before I dive deeper into the subject? Yeah, thanks for that question. Life with purpose, making a difference.
Makes one think, actually, because I think even when you shot me that question,
Dynamic, by
yeah,
seeing the smile, respect, achievement, purpose, independent, swing the life, giving back, living. Now it's flowing. Wonderful. To be an expert, a balanced life, fulfill, meaningful, fulfill goals, balanced. Now it's rocking and rolling. Huh? Okay, let me go back. Typically, if you look at the word impactful, English as a language borrows extensively from other languages, and that is something they are very smart, very adaptive. If you look at the word impactful, which came in the 80s, 60s rather, the etymology, as they say, the root of the word actually means manifesting a great effect or creating an impact. When it really look at impact, there are ways in which we can look at impact. Let me go back to maybe high school mathematics for us to understand this subject. We have something called as arithmetical progression, where 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3, the growth is something like that. And then you have something called as a geometrical progression, where it's a 2 into 2, 2 into 3, 2 into 4. And when you look at exponential growth, when n raised to the power of x, for example, 3 raised to the power of 6 or 3 raised to the power of 12, the quantum leap in growth is completely different. And that is the kind of impact that women are actually capable of bringing in. All along, imagine whatever growth has happened to this world to a great extent. Uh, it is the men in the forefront who have brought the changes with a lot of support from women from behind. If only the participation in whatever way it's possible, if it's enabled, imagine the kind of impact it would have. And unfortunately, if you look at the world that has been given to us in the last 200, 300 years, ruled by men, predominantly, I am not ashamed to say this in spite of being a man, it's predominantly, if you look at, why did I say unidimensional in the beginning? Mainly because all that so-called innovations or creativity or whatever that has come predominantly has gone towards creating one single benefit, which is nothing but making more money and living a more luxurious life. And life is not just about that. If you look at any woman I have seen in my life, many of them have more than at least 3, 4, 5 talents. If you take my own family members, my wife has about 8 or 9 facets to herself, whereas I maybe have just 1 or 2. I write books, maybe I give talks, that's it. I have seen many of them who have wonderful talent, but unfortunately, they are all measured against one single measure of creating an impact through economic survival or economic growth. And hence, when you look at a topic like spiritual CEO, you are looking at allowing a person abundant growth, male or female, in areas that were never. I'm not saying that all these are not already happening, but they're happening so less that they don't get noticed at all. Finally, what hits the papers is the economic growth of an organization, the new billionaires on the frontier, the people who have made the money, the famous diversers and how much money was given. Everything revolves around only one single vitamin M, as we call. And this is something that women are capable of changing. And this is something I don't think men are going to easily allow, because they are like one song wonder. Many of them do not know how to sing beyond that song of success through monetary terms. And this is where I believe a life change will have to happen in this world, where women will have to start really unfolding in terms of what they are truly capable of, other than just, again, sorry to say, but predominantly used by many men as decorative pieces, where they are just something that you take to a party, show them that this is my wife, or they are just the bearers of children for the next generation to come. It's sad, but unfortunately, this has been there for long time, even in advanced civilizations like the West. I don't see much of it. Here and there are, of course, people who are really taking it big time. But this impact is something which I would love to see, if possible, in this generation, a generation consisting normally of 30 years. This is where I believe that women are really capable of. If you look at, let me share just a small anecdote before I ask a question to the audience. If you look at the word woman, according to Hindu philosophy, at least from the school from which many of us come, it comes from actually two powerful words, Sanskrit words called as Prakriti or Adi Prakriti. If you look at the word, Sanskrit word called Prakriti, it actually stands for all that is post creation, what happens after creation. And if you look at what happens after creation, it's called Prakriti. But if you look at what happens before creation, it's called as Adi Prakriti or Para Prakriti, which means it is the only thing that existed from which everything in this world has actually come, including the word Purusha, which actually stands for a man. Even if you look at the stories of Adi Shakti and Shiva, it is always said that Shiva was a Amsa of Shakti. And if you really look at it, it is the Big Bang or whatever you want to call. In my view, the creator was or is the equivalent of what we would call as Adi Prakriti, the feminine form, because it is only women who are capable of really creating. Men to a great extent are capable of creating, which are at a material level, but they are great consumers, of course. They know how to consume, they know how to use. But the true creativity of women, when it's not really being used, the earth, as we are seeing, is going through a phase which would have easily been avoided. Imagine if 100 years ago, if all the governmental posts, the CEO post had been taken over by women. However, it happens. Of course, you have fancy comics, Marvel comics like Wonder Woman and all that, but it happens only in comics. If it had happened in real time, of course, there are also some great CEOs that we come along today. Indira Nui, or even in our own country, you have had Indira Gandhi. So many, but the examples are far and few. If that had become a regular occurrence, imagine the kind of change they would have brought, how much more loving and peaceful a place they would have made the earth to be. Okay, before I proceed further, I want to ask a question to the participants. What do you think woman really is capable of doing to change the current scenario of the world?
Got everybody thinking.
Yeah, bringing more empathy and compassion, okay? Can we have more responses? Prayer, okay? Compromise, show patience. They're capable of raising children to be compassionate human beings, keeping the family moral high. Magnanimity, leaning with empathy. Now it's flowing here. Women are unique to bring a change in this modern world, helping children to balance their emotions. Okay. Wisdom, good. If given a chance, they can bring change, like for people as I think that they are multitasking. Good. They're capable of doing anything. She puts her mind to, instilling strength and courage. Good. So if you really look at impact, it normally boils down to 2, 3 factors which are essential. To create impact, one, you have to create, you have to innovate, and you have to manage change. The 3 women are more adept at doing. Let me share why. Those who have studied the topic emotional intelligence might know the term amygdala hijack. Amygdala is said to be part of the primordial brain, which actually ignites the sense of survival. Whenever a situation threatens you, which seems to consume you, you tend to fight back. Normally, those days, it was reserved for animals hunting down humans, and when they were asleep or when they were being badly outnumbered, even if they were not conscious, maybe they are sleeping, amygdala takes over for them to fight or flight. And this is the fundamental difference. Unfortunately, even today, men, almost all of them, you can say, with the exceptions of a few here and there, they all look at life as a fight or flight approach. The fight or flight approach predominantly stems from the factor of survival, which is boosted by our ego. And men having loads and loads of it typically tend to look every situation as a fight or flight. If they find something where they believe they have upper hand, they go and fight, go for the kill, as they call. Even in corporate life, that's what happens. Growth is supposed to be made over mentally dead bodies, morally dead bodies. Or they fly, take a flight. When they find a superior opponent, they run away. But science has proven recently, I was reading a research paper which was somewhere in the late 90s, which is slowly gaining momentum, that women are actually completely differently wired when it comes to a survival situation. They are supposed to have two factors as compared to men who have fight or flight approach, which is nothing but what they call as a tend and network. Completely different response system as compared to men. Tend and network are two things that women normally do when they come to a survival situation. Tend means attending to the situation and seeing what needs to be done, which is more responsive and not being reactive. The second is women are very powerful networkers. Why do they network? Because that is something that they have to do to ensure that the situation or the person who is your enemy or the so-called attacker is brought into fold as a friend. After all, if you had looked at even the IPL matches of these days, 10 years back before IPL, all test playing countries, the aggression on the field was so palpable. But post IPL, since they all share the maybe the same place, whether the hotels or the dressing room or whatever you want to call. Nowadays, you don't see that. In fact, a lot of banter is there. Women are very good at networking and getting into situations, quickly converting any situation into their advantage. This is something which differentiates them. Plus one more thing. I mentioned that men are consumers. They consume anything, whereas women by default are designed to give. Whether it's knowledge, whether it's love, whether it's compassion, whether it is food, either as a mother or as any other form that they take, normally their first response is always to give. And unless you are ready to give, innovation or creativity or change is not something that is going to happen. And without creation, innovation, and change happening, any impact of substantial change, which would take you to a geometrical progression or what I mentioned about exponential growth, are not going to happen. And that is something that unfortunately today is being seen as a weakness. Many organizations I have consulted, I have coached, whenever I speak about women being brought to the top, the first reservation which comes from the top level, who of course are predominantly male, no, yeah, they're giving too fast. They don't know, they are not tough negotiators, they are very weak. They forget that compassion and love have a long-term impact on people. If I ask you, tell me 5 or 10 people have impacted your life, you're not going to surely recall Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli or maybe Aishwarya Rai or whatever. You are going to recall your uncle or your aunt or your school teacher who impacted you emotionally, because that's what actually lasts long. Today, if you are going to give your life for someone, it will be for someone who has given their life to you. It's all right for us to take photographs and put selfies saying that in the airport I met so and so. But really, when your heart goes out, it goes out to people who have really stood by you in the worst of situations. And that is what women are capable. And that's why they are the most influential people in the world. Even if you look at governments, even if you look at many of the corporate CEOs, I have personally seen that many of the major decisions made are more or less influenced by their spouse in a moral and ethical way, not as they project in many of the mega series that you watch in movies or in televisions. But they are the people by their ability to be giving, they convert their weakness into greatness in the longer run. How many of you can say that I don't like my mother? How many of you can say that I don't like my sister or my spouse? I mean, being a man. The same way, women are meant for greatness in the longer run. But in this short-term focus where we are purely looking at profits and profits and profits, many times the long-term impact of what a woman is capable of really making is almost forgotten. So I have a question now to the participants. If you are given a choice to redesign your destiny, what are the three things that you would do to create an impactful life?
I want to ask this question to you while the audience is typing,
Yes.
Prakashji, that a lot of the housework or the work that women do, and when you've said even on that they're trying to put a financial number. So what do you take of that? Because they're saying that until we put a financial number on even the housework that a woman does, she will not be valued.
It's unfortunately true. But just because, let me ask you, till Galileo, at least, of course, our Indian saints have found it out long ago, till Galileo or Copernicus said the earth is not flat, it's round. People are still believing it was flat, and at some point of time, you'll follow the sea and you'll disappear. So it's a mindset change that has to be brought. At least the pandemic has taught us one thing for sure: money doesn't matter. Not beyond certain things. Yes, to buy your groceries, maybe going out on a holiday. Nowadays, what is the holiday? Between bedroom and your office room, and that's all you have. People have now understood, thankfully, though I hope it's not a short-term memory, where you just remember that nowadays, at least in spite of all the stress, people talk about bonding with the family. They spend more time. They have understood that money doesn't make much of a difference. And the spiritual CEO actually works on that fundamental premise of purpose over profit. In the longer run, it does make sense, but people have myopic view, but people will change slowly.
So a lot of answers have come in terms of the three things.
Set goals, achieve them. Okay. Listen more to me, late mother. Be more aggressive or bold. Have a clear picture. Respect, care for, and value yourself and self-sufficient. Okay, I have put together about 9 points for the viewers today, specifically coined for women, which I have shared with several forums in different ways, but I'm giving you in a very simple format. If you have pen and paper, take it down and write, or maybe play back the video on YouTube channel later on the Sipping Thoughts channel and have a look at it. The 9 tips go like this. Point number 1, lead one day at a time. If possible, focus on 15-minute chunk in your life. One thing I always tell people, which now I think I have understood, everyone has understood. Death is anyway going to catch up some point of time or another. These days, it seems to be happening sooner than later thanks to the pandemic. Don't worry about it. If the date is written, you may not see it, but the creator will come and take it. So focus on living, not about what's going to happen when I grow old and things like that. So coming back to point number 1, simple one. Lead one day at a time. Take 15 minutes chunk. Give your best. Don't worry about what happens later. And repeat. Point 1, what I said. Point 2, focus on having purpose, live by values and efforts. Focus on a purpose. Why am I here? Once you find it, you will see a tremendous amount of change in the way in which you look at people, the things, the world, and not be driven by results. Unfortunately, whatever little bit I have seen in the world, 97 to 98% of the people whom I have met do not seem to have a purpose. The big question, what we call as a why. Why am I here? Point number 3. Focus. In this book, Spiritual CEO, I've written in detail about this, what I call as lead indicators and lag indicators. Lead indicators are, very simply put, the efforts. Lag indicators, very simply put, are the results. The same thing what maybe Lord Krishna taught Arjuna. Shoot the arrow, don't worry about what happens. If it is already pre-written, you will get it. Doesn't mean that you compromise on the efforts. You give the best. The fruit will not fall off the tree on your lap. You still have to shoot the stone or the arrow. Whether it gets the fruit in round 1 or it misses may not be in your hands, but the efforts still are yours. So even in corporate life, point number 3, focus on what we call as lead indicators, not on lag indicators. Point number 3, what women actually are very good at. Be a professional listener. You're already wired for it. If you remember the book, many of us might have read 15, 20 years ago, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. You will know that women are designed to listen because their focus of life is from heart. Men's focus of life is from the mind. Hence, they are fine-tuned to listen. Listen more because that's something that today people need. The coaching that I do many times, if I spend half an hour, 25 minutes is about listening to their challenges and issues in life. How somebody is suffering from COVID, what kind of challenges they're facing, how they don't get their food on time, things like that. Many times, 80 to 90% of the time, by sheer listening, the load in the person's mind gets off. They get it off their chest, as they say, which are good at. Keep doing that. Point number 5, be curious about life. Many times people continuously live in denial and in fear. The more curious you are, the more it unfolds. Like a beautiful photograph which is hidden in dust, all it needs is for you to clear the dust and you will find the photograph in its original glory. And that needs a lot of curiosity. So be curious about life. Not inquisitive, but be curious. Point number 6, practice extreme compassion and forgiving. These are 2 factors which I have learned through the practice of heartfulness meditation, which I have been practicing. You can visit the site heartfulness.org for you to learn about how we meditate, how it enhances your ability to be compassionate and be forgiving. I mean, animals live a more, in my view at least, a happy life because they are not going to carry that this man walk. Of course, a few animals they say do have memories. They don't live in the past. They take that moment and they go on. So practice extreme compassion and be forgiving. Point number 7, this is something I tell men as well as women. Like yourself for what you are and not for what you are not. Many people say, I would have been better if I had this. I would have been that if my hair was this longer. I would have been better if I had a much more bank balance. I would have been better if my husband was more understanding. It might happen. It might happen by continuous efforts. Same way, do not hate yourself for what you are not. Like yourself for what you are. There is a purpose why God made you as to what you are right now. Enjoy that. Take it in your stride. Every moment is worth living as you are born. You can't change it anyway. Why bother? Point number 8, it's all about you versus you. What you were yesterday, what you are today, what you are tomorrow. The fight is never with the competition. How much more wealth I have compared to my neighbor, what car do I drive compared to my boss, which holiday am I going this year compared to my so-and-so relative, doesn't make a difference. It's always about you. That way, the competition is always between you. There is only focus. I've given you 8 points. So sum it up, the 9th one, which I practice, which I will certainly advocate anyone, find any form of meditation that you want to, but practice meditation. The more you are able to practice meditation, you may not overcome problems in life, but you'll find one thing for sure. Your attitude towards handling problems would have dramatically changed. You will see God's plan in a better way. Without questioning, you'll be able to cheerfully accept. These are the 9 points I want to give. If there are any questions on this, I'd like to take before I close off with a short story from my book.
So Priya is asking, can you explain point number 3, especially about the lead indicators?
Lead indicators are simple. For example, I have been given the assignment of building a house. The master plan has been given to me. What I have control is what I can do today, how much I can dig the foundation, where I can put the rocks, where I can put the bricks. If I'm going to compare at the end of every day, how will the house shape up? My focus will shift to the result. The same thing MS Dhoni is famous of saying, I don't care about the results, I focus on the process. Efforts or lead indicators is about focusing on the process all the time. Results, whatever has to come, will come. Many times I found when we stop resisting, the results come out which is meant to be better for us than what we ourselves would have actually been deserving to get. Are there any other questions you want me to answer, or can I go with the story?
I think that was the question that came. Go ahead.
Okay, this is a story which is there in the chapter 9. This is a topic which I close off in the book, The Spiritual CEO, called the Terra Firma, or the firm ground. There are 3 stories there I recite. The third story, which is my favorite one, the story of Nala Damayanti from the Mahabharata times. He is the king of the Nishada kingdom, and is known for his skill with horses, other than, of course, his culinary skills. And then he gets into Swayamvar and then gets married to the lady love that he loves, and she likes him too, the Damayanti. And unfortunately, during that same Swayamvara, the Lord Kali also comes there, and he casts his eye on Damayanti. He wants to get married, but somehow she doesn't choose him. And one after another, the whole thing unfolds. He gives him a curse. In less than 12 years, Nala loses his kingdom in a battle of a dice game with his own brother. And Damayanti goes with him to the forest, and he doesn't stop there. One after another, one after another. It's a long story. I'm just paraphrasing and giving you the substance of what they go through. Both of them do not lose faith on each other. But if you really look at the entire story, right from the time of Damayanti taking the decision of marrying Nala, to the time she finally restores him back to the, she even goes through the process of actually going through a second Swayamvar, knowing well that that's the only way in which he will get out. He goes into a hiding because he doesn't want to face the world. And when he gets to know the message that she's going through a second Swayamvar, he cannot stop but saying, how can my wife go through this? So he comes there, and then they get united, and finally he gets back the kingdom, and all is well that ends well. But if you really look at the entire story, it is Damayanti's wisdom and shrewdness throughout. She writes the script, she guides him at every stage. She fights forces of much higher order, including Lord Kali himself. At every occasion, every twist in the tale, it is Damayanti who actually saves Nala. And slowly at each level, he sort of gets them out. There are 4 major learnings that I share in the book through this story. When and where to lean and when and where not to lean. Women are capable of finding out intuitively. They know which way to get. They know which door to open. If you really ask me if there is a science behind it, maybe no, maybe yes, I don't know. They seem to be intuitive. I have seen this happening in my own life many times with my wife, with my mother, with my daughter, with many of my sisters whom I know through heartfulness meditation. Many times when I know that their intuition is in place, I follow what they say, in despite of whatever I may be, the position I hold or the standing in the society, it doesn't really matter. The second point is they are very quick to size up limitations of any situation. They can quickly, I mean, it's surprisingly many times I have been forewarned many times, either by my friend or by my wife or my, well, whoever, any woman whom I know in my life. They always come back and say, Prakash, or whatever relationship I have, say that don't do this. They're very quick in sizing the limitation, which is where the story really weaves the entire points together. And they are capable of encouraging transformation in people's attitude and belief system. All of us have grown up on a staple diet of stories that our mothers beautifully crafted when we are young. Today, of course, channels and WhatsApp has taken it. But the storytelling concept with which they put a lot of belief systems in our head, which help shape our attitude. I don't think men are really capable, though they might be reading stories out of books. And even in day-to-day life, as Damayanti did to Nala, they are capable of giving advice which is beyond normal man's comprehension, which works only through the mind. And finally, one thing, if you really look at the story of Nala Damayanti, women know how to put people who are around them ahead of themselves. They don't have a selfish motive. A few of them might have, we can't color all of them just because a few do. But if you really look at it, women have the knack of putting people ahead of themselves and seeing a larger picture, which is what essential. If you look at the fight between countries, if you take about 160 countries in the world, except 2 or 3, maybe New Zealand, maybe a couple of countries, all the countries, PMs or the presidents or the head of states are men. And they have only one coin of operation, which is nothing but power and geographical expansion of their country or acquisition or things like that. Whereas if women had been ruling, which I mentioned in the beginning of my talk also, they would have created the complete game plan where we wouldn't have so many borders today dividing countries. We would, in fact, I was reading a book which spoke about how the future unfolds. In that future, predominantly what they call as the presidential council consists mainly of women, and they rule the entire world. They don't rule; they rather govern the world through love and compassion. These are 4 things which the story really weaves beautifully, and they are good at not commanding and empathizing. They are good at focusing and elevating others, which men normally don't do easily. And despite of doing all this, I have spoken to many women. Heart of heart, they all know that they are far superior to men, both at the home front and in the corporate levels also. But they normally are grounded and humble. They say it's okay, it's fine. And it's not out of a despondency, but it's because they are truly humble. These are the points that I believe is something that would make a huge impact when people go through this book. I can only say, using this platform to salute all the women who are capable of making the change that the world needs. And that CEO is not necessarily a person who heads the organization. They are the ones who head the family also. When they are looking at a larger cost and not looking at a very narrow cost, they are going to make the change. With that, I give it back to you for hosting a few questions.
Absolutely, sir. One question I will ask you as soon as I open it out to also. Uh, so, one of the things, especially in the corporate world, and when we come back to that, a lot of the traits for success are male dominated traits, right? And most of the women feel that if we don't adopt those male dominated traits, such as aggression, power, whatever, we cannot be successful because that is what you're rewarded for. How does a woman manage that?
See, recently I wrote an article called Minority Leadership. Everything that was changed in the world, every big shift that happened in the world, initially there are hardly 1 or 2 people who believed in it. And that belief and conviction over a period of time had a snowballing effect, a ripple effect. And then the world started embracing those changes and everyone started believing it. It's a question of time. I firmly believe that women will have to stand up more lovingly, but more aggressively to share their views. At least keep sharing your thoughts. Write blogs, write to the government, get into channels, talk about it, make YouTube videos. Slowly, I mean, you know how to win the game. The world needs women more than men today because that's why women has men inbuilt. Men without a W is of no use.
We'll take, I, uh, I'll just take Pankuri's question. How does someone find purpose?
Meditate. Are we going to a rapid fire round or subjective
No,
question?
this is Pankuri has asked this question. So,
I always keep asking. The famous Sanskrit word, there is something called as enati, not this, not this, not this. Anything in my view which is materialistic in nature is not the purpose of the business. We need to earn money. We have to make those millions or billions, whatever.
Divya, I think you have some background noise. I'm just going to mute you. When I take your question, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you really look at it, material living is essential, but normal purpose comes from beyond that. For example, after you leave the world, what will you be remembered for? Will you be remembered for the bank balance that you had? Even you won't remember what it is. But for example, you write a book or you leave certain thoughts in YouTube. I tell people, whatever you know, record one video every day, put it in your own channel. People will someday find it out. Bring some positive change in 5 people, 10 people in your street or in your block and see the chain effect it brings in. When you're able to look at leaving a legacy that itself can, rather than instead of asking what is the purpose, Ask yourself, what legacy, however small, however large, what legacy can I leave behind in this world? That might help you find the purpose.
So Maithili, I'm asking you to ask your question. Go ahead, Maithili. Her question is, I'll ask it on her behalf. What are your thoughts on the feminist movement?
I would rather say that the need for either condemning MCP or looking at a feminist movement by itself both have a very narrow purpose. We are looking at integrating. Women are much more capable of integrating the. Have you ever thought, let me ask the person who asked the question a question. Have you ever thought at those 3.6 million species who are beyond humans ever? Do they have a voice? Are we not usurping and taking the planet and ensuring they're all finished off? Just because we have been treading on the planet for 300,000 years, does it give a right for us to finish every other living being on the world? Can we do something bigger? Women have that heart, men don't. Feminist movement, yes, but that's a very narrow purpose, but it's a good way to begin.
So her question is, how do we stand up for ourselves and also take care of the bigger picture? That's Maithili's follow-up.
Standing up has two aspects, one at a family level, one at a society level. At a family level, it is something that we all have to work out. In the current scenario where women are much more empowered because at least 60 to 70% of the women that I have come across, maybe in the rural, urban areas, it may be lesser, they're economically free. So they are capable of making themselves be heard in the family front also. It is in the society where today women have to voice their opinion, not get aggressive, but start sharing their opinions. See, whatever I feel like writing, I immediately take and write it in the blog, tell the world. Some point of time, somebody captures it. All the thoughts that have gone behind the spiritual CEO book are thoughts which have gone into my head over a period of 10, 15, 20 years. Express yourself. Somebody will listen to you. Don't stop. Just because you don't have followers, just because nobody listens to you, just because somebody condemns you, somebody trolls you, men will troll you in case you write something. Express an opinion about bigger issues beyond family. Family is all within the four walls. I think today men are much more subdued, at least in the metros, as far as at least I see it, with occasional. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So Sunana is asking this question, is it justified to sacrifice a woman's dream for the sake of the family?
I mean, together, every family can achieve more. See, men need a few toys to play with. Very simply put, they need a little bit of space, they need a fancy gadgets, some money, and a little bit of ego aggrandizement, as you can call. Allow them to flash their ego here and there. But overall, when they understand, specifically men are vulnerable when they go through a lot of downfalls. That is when they need women the most. Between 30 years ago, what I have witnessed in the world, I travel a lot, not in the last 1 year though. I meet a lot of people. Here and there are exceptions, but overall men are mellowing down a lot. They are also understanding that it's no more a game for them alone to run. Another 15, 20, 30 years, I'm very sure we'll be there.
We are getting this question from Vinita. What about the retelling of our narratives? For example,
Retelling?
Retelling of our narratives.
Okay.
For example, the Sita Yana.
Can you rephrase that question? I don't get the point.
That our stories have been retold. You know, a lot of stories about women are being told.
Build your own narratives. I mean, the narratives that have been given to us are 5,000, 10,000 years old. If you don't like the narratives, right? See, even our own history books are not with the narratives which are accurate. We all know that everything that we hear could have been distorted, Create your own positive narratives which will help the world transform from just looking at materialistic gains and means. See, I already see it happening. The churning is happening heavily. being a writer, being a social observer, participating in multiple areas of improving the society on several fronts, whatever I can. I do see that the churning is happening, but the churning has to be positive. Otherwise, it will become a I versus you kind of a situation. Then that's not good for either men or women. But together we are bound to achieve greater heights, which currently we haven't yet explored, is my view.
So Divya is asking, can you suggest some books to get motivated for homemakers?
Look up at all my books.
So all your books are motivating for homemakers, actually.
Anything that changes your perception in a positive way is a motivating book. See, motivation, if you really look at it very simply, if you look at the definition, motivation comes from a Latin word which stands for maintaining force. That's all. And when do you need to maintain force? To move from where you are to where you want to go. That's all. So, as somebody had put it in the chat box, you have to know what your goal is and you have to maintain the force to reach those goals. And motivation is that. Anything which helps you do that. It could be an art, it could be a scientific knowledge, it could be a management knowledge. Whatever helps you to keep moving towards whatever is your chosen goal is helpful for motivation. And hence, I said all my books.
Lata, go ahead, ask your question.
Warm good evening to everyone. Lata Nahar from Bangalore. Now, my question to Prakash ji is, if we read our scriptures and through a lot of series and all these things, the position or the condition of
Lata, we can't hear you. You have to be a little louder.
Okay, just a second. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
No, not
You're faint, but go ahead.
Okay. The position of women or the condition of women, what is so...
Are you able to hear her?
No, Lata, you may have to type out your question because you're coming in very faint.
Now, guys?
Now, much better. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a second, please.
Now it's fine.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you please hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just rephrase my question again. Prakash ji, it's like the condition of the women, what is depicted in our Ved Purans, and the way it's been shown in a lot of teleserials, movies and all, was much better. Women were very bold. Women were very brave. They were allowed to do a lot of things, what we are not allowed today. Now, the generation what we are today is shown more as women who's very helpless, who needs to keep fighting all the time to become equality with men. I personally feel that there's nothing called equality. All human beings are meant to be same, whether let it be men, women, transgenders, anyone. Any living being is same on this earth. But the way our mentality and the mindsets have been made, the way they portray women, the way the women have been taught. But how do we get a change about it? With the present generation who's going to take over the country from, in a few years, from the 30s and 40s, who's going to take over the country now?
Let me answer it from a completely different perspective altogether. Say, for example, you are going in a road. There are 10 side lanes on the main road. And in the first side lane, say there are 100 people going in the road. 95 people have already gone into the side lane. They have completely blocked the full road. And all the rest of the 9 roads have the same view or the houses or whatever. The other 5 are entering the road just because they see this 95 standing there. They tend to get attracted thinking there is something there, so they have to get in there too. Forgetting that there are 9 roads ahead which are completely empty for them to occupy. I have to draw a parallel from there to the life of a woman. The capabilities and the skill sets that a woman has outweighs a man 10:1. And I'm not kidding. You read any book which has been written. Unfortunately, what happens is men have been smart enough, street smart enough to make women draw the battlefronts on areas where they've already occupied. For example, boardroom. For example, starting an enterprise. For example, becoming a CEO in an organization. Forgetting that there are 9 or 10 different avenues where women can make substantial changes in the world. Tremendous amount of changes. This is a topic which is worth writing 10 volumes of books about. areas where women say, unfortunately, it's like we are fighting for the same toy, forgetting that there are 9 different toys which are available, which you can play with. Like kids, what has happened is men have successfully made you to have, at least temporarily, to have a horse blinder vision of looking at what they have and say that come and fight with me, come and fight with me.
Yes.
And what are women doing? They're going and fighting with them. And when you get into a fight with a person who's already muddied completely, at some point of time, you will get muddied and he will be enjoying the fun. Why do you get in there? Get into a different area. And for this, you need a completely, just do not fight men on areas, 1 or 2 areas where they are good at. Leave it. There are hundreds of areas where women are far, far, far superior. Far, far, far superior. You just cannot imagine. As I said, it needs about 10 books for me to write this alone. Thanks for triggering, maybe because I learned up writing. But if you start exploring there, you become, you see, men will be confused. Men cannot think beyond 2. I am telling you, being a man, I mean, from the time of birth till now, I know for sure that no other way in which we can think. There are only 2, 3 things we think, period. Money, power, gadgets. And if you're young, maybe a person on the bed, that's all. What more can a man think? I mean, they're so straitjacketed, you are predictable. 99% of the male are predictable in terms of how they look at world. Leave them there like kids who are playing on some side street. Why do you want to go and fight with a pig? I'm not comparing men as pigs. But if you want to create your own game, go and create your own game. I will say that in front of men also. I know it's being recorded, it's going to be cast alive. And men will not have any qualms accepting. They will say that, yeah, let them go and play elsewhere. Why are they coming and fighting with me?
We'll take the next question from Anita.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead. Anita, go ahead.
Namaskar, Prakash ji.
Namaste ji.
It's lovely to listen to your thoughts.
Thank you.
I just have a question about your book. You said that your book is a collection of articles that you have written from the past 20 years. So how long did it take for your book to be published after you had submitted your manuscript of the Spiritual CEO to?
Just a small correction. There's not collection of articles from the past. There's not collection of my thoughts from the past.
Okay.
I wrote the script in about 45 days from the time, see, just when the pandemic had begun.
Yes.
I knew that it's going to last for a little bit longer time. And I had been thinking of touching the conscience of people to awaken them to a higher purpose in life beyond money. There is something much higher, whether you find it through meditation or by being a spiritual CEO or whatever. And then the topic of the spiritual CEO came up. In about 40 days, I'd done the first manuscript. I sent it to a few publishers, and Westland Amazon was the first to pick it up. After the 3-4 months, it took them to touch it up, edit, go through the editorial process and all that. And normally when you are good at writing, it just flows. You sit there, it flows. For me, I don't write, I type. So it became much easier. I finished the first script in about 40 days, did the basic spell and grammar checks, gave it a, you see, running after publisher is a time-consuming process. My first book came in 1998 and there were no takers, so it was self-published. In spite of it being self-published, I did whatever those days publicity was all about. I sold quite a number of copies, which got the attention of the biggest publisher in the world, McGraw-Hill. And then they bought the rights of my second book, which was published in 2001. And then slowly it went on. It will take time. If not anything else, today there are several self-publishing houses. They'll print you one copy and get an ISBN number, print one thing, it'll cost you a few $1,000. So what? At least a name will be there somewhere. You can say, I wrote a book.
Sir, one question, at least my big takeaway, at least from reading your book, was this focus. And I come back to this question on profit and loss and monetary value. How can you suggest we change this mindset? Because more and more I see we are driven to that. How do we economically value the work of women? How do we economically value everything? Everything needs to have an equation of money and dollar signs.
Would you be surprised if you say the syllabus has already been changed? Way back in 90s, some of the top organizations in the world came out with what is known as a corporate TBL or a triple bottom line. I have touched upon this in the book as well. A triple bottom line as compared to a single bottom line where they look at only profits. A triple bottom line, an organization is formed where the top level people focus on 3 things simultaneously. Profit is one. They call it as the 3 Ps or triple bottom line. Profit is one. The second, what they call as people. The third, what they call as planet. So which means a CEO or the top management has their performance weighed on 3 equal parameters. One is getting the profit. Second is managing the people who are part of the organization, taking care of them. The third is what we call the planet, from where I come from. For example, I run a bottling company. I tap water from the ground for me to make that. I have to do something to ensure that the place from where I come, the water is replenished in some way. So you give back to the planet from where you actually your sustenance comes from. This is where the spiritual bottom line takes a little bit of a higher approach to this, where you're looking at your purpose, being aligned to the organizational purpose, being aligned to a global purpose. Finding the global purpose and aligning organizational and individual purpose is what spiritual bottom line is all about, and engineering your life around that. Surprisingly, today in the world, at least that I know of, there are thousands of organizations who are using these kind of yardsticks in one way or another to lead their organizations. You're on mute.
Question before I hand it to you for your tip: the difference between the heart and the mind. I also found that very interesting in your book.
It is something that you have to enjoy to know the difference. See, mind is the first reaction to any situation. So the moment you see anything, what comes to your mind, as they say? It came to my mind. Hold on, just wait. Because the heart is a little bit deeper. It's like a person who's inside a well. The voice will take a little bit of time for it to reach. That's why they always say, if you want to listen to the heart, pause. Give a pause. Whenever you are in doubt, pause. I mean, in life, really nothing matters. If it's a life and death situation, you go to a doctor, they are going to take care. Anything else, just give it sufficient pause for the heart to respond. And this is something I would rather learn from women than teaching women. Because I have seen that women know how to read the pulse from their heart very easily. Because heart is what controls compassion and being forgiving, being merciful. They are the qualities of a heart-based person, heart-based living. A mind-based person, predominantly you can find out egoistic, power-driven, survival-driven. It's quite easy to find out. But in doubt, very simple. Very difficult to practice, very simple answer, pause.
And I know we're out of time. I apologize if I couldn't get to your question. But Prakashji, any last thoughts as we end the session for today? Other than, of course, do get the book.
I never sell the book because they know that. What I always say is that based on my own personal experience, right from the way in which I was brought up. When I was about 7, my father had to move out of my hometown for his business. And till the end of his life, I never happened to spend more time with him. Twice a year, thrice a year, that's all. My entire grooming, whatever I am today, was done by my mother. And 3 teachers to whom I owe during my school. 2 of them were women. Unfortunately, one died due to a questionable stove accident those days. The other teacher is still good, she's there. The other one was a male teacher. He also died young due to a heart attack. I have seen that women are great leaders and they don't run after publicity. They don't, of course, a few do due to social pressures and compulsions, but predominantly they know how to handle the pressures. Keep doing what you're good at. Keep seeking space in a positive way. Ensure that you are heard more and more in a positive way to bring a positive change. I'll be the first person always to back you, and you can take my word for granted. I'm not saying it in a shallow way because this is what I have been saying. All those who know me know this well. I do have my blemishes, but as far as I'm concerned, women are fit to lead far better than men. Be at it 20, 30 years from now, maybe sooner, we will do it. Those are my parting words.
Wow, thank you. I think one last question, I can't resist asking it. Who is the best spiritual CEO according to you? Anita, that was an awesome question.
Earlier, my mother, now my wife.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for joining us. That was an excellent session. Thank you, Prakashji, for motivating us and reminding us all of
Madam, I have a question.
how powerful we are. Go ahead, Ranadir. Go ahead, please.
Sir, good evening, sir. Prakash, sir. How come you encourage a girl or woman slapping a man? And how come you, as a writer, justify that that the
I'm not
99%, 1 minute, sir, 99% of the society will support the woman, and where man blames, and how come you explain in your writings or in your books about this situation?
If you're,
How come you encourage?
if you're suggesting that I've told women can slap, I'm not for physical contact, either between man and women or women. It is not a slugfest in life. It's about giving the space to each other and managing to live a life in a balanced way. My guru's guru, Babaji Maharaj, used to say that God is not crazy or a fool to have created man and woman if only one unisex was sufficient. If he has made it, there is a reason for us all to coexist and progress. There is a big scheme of things which we have to figure out for us to peacefully coexist. If I have given you an impression that it's all right to slap and get away, not at all. That's not what I meant. My apologies if that has been interpreted that way. What I always mean is peaceful coexistence for a common growth which is beyond the current comprehension. I hope I answered your question.
Well, thank you, Prakashji. Again, awesome session.
Thanks
I think a lot of people are saying very insightful. Salute to your perception of women. Beautiful and motivating. Thank you for understanding women. I think you made all of the Women's Day. I should have had you come on Women's
I
Day.
would like to thank the women on the screen, Sukriti ma'am. I would like to thank Sipping Thoughts, Westland Publishers, Amazon Company, and all the great women who have been part of my life throughout, who have kicked me or inspired me, kicked me in a way in which to make me better mentally, inspired me and brought me to where I am. There are many men who have played equal role also, not to write it down in any way. But thanks a lot for this wonderful opportunity. I hope to meet all of you someday in the future somewhere. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for joining us today. Lots of exciting sessions on Sipping Thoughts. And again, for this one, we have to specifically thank Amazon and Westland for making this happen.